A new beginning awaits, Tesoro's transformation, and the bittersweet farewells on days of our lives. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most emotionally charged episodes in Days of Our Lives history. On Wednesday, November 5th, Salem residents are bracing themselves for a whirlwind of momentous occasions, including an official name revelation that will forever change a beloved baby's life. Heartfelt goodbyes that will leave viewers reaching for tissues. A family's joyful milestone, the official Adoption Day celebration. As the calendar marks the arrival of the much-anticipated official Adoption Day, Johnny DiMera and Chanel Dupree DiMera find themselves at a crossroads between profound happiness and cautious optimism. This monumental occasion represents far more than just legal paperwork and official documents. It symbolizes the culmination of months of emotional turbulence, legal battles, and the unwavering determination of a young couple desperately wanting to expand their family. Throughout their journey, Johnny and Chanel have navigated numerous obstacles that could have derailed their dreams of parenthood. Yet they persevered with remarkable strength and commitment to one another. The significance of this adoption cannot be understated in the context of the DiMera family legacy. For Johnny, this represents an opportunity to establish his own identity separate from the notorious DiMera empire that has defined his family for generations. Chanel, meanwhile, sees this adoption as the fulfillment of a lifelong aspiration and the chance to create a loving, stable family environment rooted in genuine affection rather than manipulation or control. Together, they have demonstrated a maturity and devotion that stands in sharp contrast to the dysfunction that has historically plagued their respective families. As they prepare to welcome their son into their home permanently, the entire Salem community is ready to celebrate this beautiful new chapter in their lives. The Adoption Day represents a turning point not only for Johnny and Chanel, but also for the broader DiMera family dynamics. This event serves as a reminder that despite the darkness and moral ambiguity that often surrounds the DiMera name, genuine love and redemption are always possible. For loyal DOOL fans who have watched Johnny mature from a troubled youth into a compassionate partner and devoted father figure, this moment carries tremendous emotional weight. EJ's unexpected gesture, building bridges across fractured relationships. In a surprising display of familial consideration, EJ DiMera reaches out to Johnny and Chanel with heartfelt congratulations, demonstrating a more measured and contemplative side of his typically complex personality. This gesture, though seemingly straightforward on the surface, carries immense psychological significance within the context of EJ's troubled relationships with his family members. By acknowledging this momentous occasion, EJ attempts to extend an olive branch and participate in the joy surrounding the adoption. Even though his presence in family matters has historically been fraught with complications and selfish motivations, EJ's primary objective in extending these congratulations appears to be twofold. First, to legitimize his role in facilitating the adoption process by reminding Johnny and Chanel of the instrumental role he played in convincing Amy Choi to entrust them with the baby, and second, to attempt to ameliorate the considerable tension that has accumulated between him and his nephew and niece-in-law. Throughout their relationship, EJ has demonstrated a disturbing tendency to insert himself into family situations uninvited, often with ulterior motives lurking beneath seemingly generous offers. However, in this instance, there are indications that his congratulations may stem from a genuine place of familial pride, though even this noble gesture becomes complicated by the conditions that accompany it. The congratulatory message serves as a subtle reminder to Johnny and Chanel of the debt they owe to EJ for his involvement in the adoption process. This creates an interesting dynamic where gratitude becomes intertwined with obligation and where a simple acknowledgement of joy becomes layered with unspoken expectations and complicated emotions. EJ's willingness to express happiness for others represents a marked departure from his usual calculating demeanor, suggesting that even within the morally ambiguous framework of the DiMera family, moments of genuine human connection and family loyalty can still flourish. A conditional promise, trust, boundaries, and unmet expectations. While Johnny and Chanel express their appreciation for EJ's instrumental role in facilitating the adoption, their gratitude is tempered by a critical condition that EJ has reportedly promised to honor, maintaining his distance from the newborn. This stipulation emerges from years of accumulated experience with EJ's tendency to blur boundaries and impose his will upon family matters, often causing unforeseen complications and emotional turmoil. Johnny and Chanel have learned through painful observation that close proximity between EJ and vulnerable family members frequently results in manipulation, control, and circumstances that ultimately damage relationships and erode trust. The agreement to keep EJ at arm's length from their son represents a deliberate and necessary boundary that Johnny and Chanel have constructed to protect their expanding family unit. This decision reflects their determination to establish their own family identity, independent of the manipulative patterns that have historically defined the DeMera household. By insisting on this spatial and emotional separation, they are effectively saying that while they appreciate EJ's involvement in bringing their son into their lives, they are unwilling to allow his influence to penetrate the intimate family sphere where critical values and foundational relationships are established. For EJ, this condition represents an unprecedented limitation on his involvement in family affairs, a humbling realization that despite his power and resources, he cannot dictate the terms of his relationships with all family members. The promise to respect this boundary is a tacit acknowledgement that his past behavior has necessitated such protective measures. However, the narrative suggests that this promise may not be permanent, hinting at future developments where EJ might struggle to maintain his commitment to staying away, setting the stage for dramatic conflict and potential reconciliation. The heartbreak of separation, EJ's painful acceptance of exclusion. The news that EJ will not be granted contact with his newborn nephew strikes him with devastating force, triggering a profound sense of loss and rejection that cuts deeply into his carefully constructed emotional defenses. For a man accustomed to wielding power and influence throughout his existence, being systematically excluded from a significant family event represents a humbling and painful reality check. EJ's heartbreak stems not merely from his inability to interact with the infant, but from the deeper realization that his past actions have created such irreparable damage that his family feels compelled to protect their child from his presence. This emotional devastation that EJ experiences reflects a complex internal landscape, simultaneously combining his genuine desire to be part of his family's joyous occasions with his recognition that such participation is currently impossible due to the justified concerns of Johnny and Chanel. The contradiction between his intentions and his permitted actions creates an internal conflict that manifests as visible heartbreak and resignation. Yet embedded within this apparent acceptance lies a quiet determination, as the narrative subtly suggests that this exclusion may not prove permanent. For longtime DOOL viewers, EJ's capacity to experience genuine pain and disappointment humanizes a character who has often been portrayed as ruthless and unfeeling. This moment of vulnerability reveals the complex layers beneath his typically calculating exterior, demonstrating that even a DeMera is capable of experiencing the profound ache of exclusion and the desperate longing for family acceptance. The writers have crafted a scenario where EJ's suffering becomes simultaneously understandable and deserved, creating a nuanced character moment that adds considerable depth to ongoing relationship dynamics. The significance of a name, honoring legacy, and creating connection. As the Adoption Day celebration approaches its culmination, the focus shifts toward a decision that will permanently define this child's identity and connection to the broader Salem community, official selection and bestowal of a meaningful name. Johnny and Chanel, recognizing the profound implications of this choice, have embarked upon a careful consideration of options that balance personal significance with familial legacy. Their deliberation reflects not merely a desire to select a name that sounds pleasant or carries aesthetic appeal, but rather a commitment to choosing a designation that will serve as a tangible connection to the people and values that matter most to them. The name selection process becomes an intimate family discussion as Johnny and Chanel share their chosen name with Marlene Evans, a cornerstone of Salem's emotional and spiritual landscape. Marlena's presence in this moment carries considerable symbolic weight, as she has served as a maternal figure and moral compass throughout the series, offering guidance and wisdom to multiple generations of Salem residents. Her reaction to the chosen name becomes a form of validation, confirming that Johnny and Chanel have selected something with genuine meaning and historical significance within their family constellation. The deliberation and discussion surrounding the name choice demonstrates the intentionality with which Johnny and Chanel are approaching their new roles as adoptive parents, rather than defaulting to a generic or conventional selection. They have invested considerable thought into choosing a name that will forever anchor their son to meaningful family history and cultural values. This careful consideration reflects their recognition that the name they choose will become an integral part of their child's identity, shaping how others perceive him and potentially influencing his own sense of belonging within the family structure. Trey, a name that honors legacy and promises eternity. The revelation of the chosen name tree, serving as an affectionate nickname for John E., represents a stunning tribute to John Black, the iconic patriarch whose influence has extended across decades of Salem history and who has touched the lives of virtually every significant character within the narrative universe. By selecting this name, Johnny and Chanel are making a powerful statement about the values they intend to instill in their son and the legacy they hope he will inherit. John Black's character has long represented principles of justice, determination, and unwavering loyalty to family and loved one as qualities that Johnny and Chanel presumably wish to see cultivated within their adopted son. The decision to name the baby Trey carries multi-layered significance that extends far beyond the simple act of naming. John 3 suggests a direct lineage and spiritual connection, implying that this child will carry forward the name and, symbolically, the ideals of the great patriarch. Meanwhile, the familiar nickname Trey humanizes this grand legacy, making it accessible and intimate rather than distant and formal. The name becomes a bridge between past and future, connecting the youngest generation of Damaris to their family's most treasured history, while simultaneously establishing a fresh identity for this child born into unique circumstances. For Marlene, the revelation of this name choice produces a cascade of emotions: joy at seeing the legacy of John Black honored and perpetuated, affirmation that Johnny has matured beyond his rebellious youth and now demonstrates genuine respect for family heritage, and profound satisfaction that the man who has been her life partner will live on through this new generation. The emotional resonance of this naming decision reverberates throughout Salem's emotional landscape, reminding viewers of the connective tissue that binds families together across time and circumstance. A moment of connection, Marlene and Paulina's shared joy and reflection. As the news of the chosen name spreads throughout Salem, Marlene Evans and Paulina Prisetwo, formidable women whose lives have intersected through various family connections and shared experience, seize the opportunity to bond over this joyous development. This moment of connection transcends the surface-level celebration of a naming decision, instead becoming an opportunity for these two characters to reflect upon their own journeys, acknowledge the passages of time, and contemplate the significance of legacy and continuity within the fabric of Salem society. Their bonding session encompasses a tender reminiscence of past events, acknowledged hardships overcome, and the resilience demonstrated by multiple generations of Salem residents. Through this conversation, both Marlene and Paulina engage in the deeply human activity of measuring progress, celebrating victories, and positioning themselves within the larger narrative arc of their lives. They exchange observations about how circumstances have changed, how individuals have matured and evolved, and how the community continues to regenerate itself through new births and new beginnings. This quiet moment of reflection provides viewers with a window into the inner emotional lives of these characters and reminds us that even amid dramatic plot developments and sensational revelations, the simple human experiences of connection, remembrance, and hope remain central to the days of our lives narrative. The conversation between Marlene and Paulina also functions as a mechanism for honoring the passage of time and the cyclical nature of generational advancement. As they discuss the future and contemplate what lies ahead for Johnny, Chanel, and their newly named son, they simultaneously acknowledge how quickly time has passed and how the young people they once knew have matured into responsible adults, capable of forming families and making consequential decisions. This bittersweet recognition that progress inevitably means the loss of earlier chapters and the transformation of relationships, an underlying melancholic current to what is, ostensibly a celebration of joy and anticipation. The overwhelming joy and the difficult farewell of families' complex emotions. For Johnny and Chanel, the official naming of Trey represents the culmination of their adoption journey and the beginning of their life as permanent parents to this cherished child. However, this moment of profound joy is inextricably intertwined with the necessity of saying goodbye to those who have provided loving care during the interim period between the baby's birth and his official integration into Johnny and Chanel's household. This bittersweet dualitide simultaneous experience of gaining and losing, of celebrating and grieving creates an emotionally complex scenario that mirrors real-world adoption experiences. The Hernandez family, particularly Leo Stark and Javi Hernandez, faces the imminent reality of relinquishing daily care responsibilities for the child they have nurtured with devotion and tenderness. Gabi Hernandez, whose protective instincts and fierce commitment to family have made her an integral presence during this transitional period, must also come to terms with the changed dynamics. Even young Ari Hernandez, who has been part of this child's world since his earliest days, must navigate the profound adjustment of watching the baby transition to a new family structure. For all these individuals, the adoption represents a necessary and ultimately positive development, yet its execution requires them to experience the pangs of separation and loss. The narrative carefully emphasizes that this goodbye is not a rejection of the Hernandez family's love or care, but rather a recognition that the baby's place ultimately belongs with his adoptive parents. Johnny and Chanel's decision to establish their own household and raise their son according to their own parenting philosophy and family values is entirely appropriate and represents the natural progression toward independent family formation. Nevertheless, this logical understanding does not diminish the emotional impact of the transition, and the various members of the Hernandez family must process their complicated feelings even as they celebrate the positive outcome. Leo and Javi, bearing the weight of profound loss together. The narrative spotlights Leo Stark and Javi Hernandez as the primary caretakers who have devoted themselves most intensely to the baby's well-being, making their impending separation particularly acute and emotionally devastating. These two individuals have transcended the casual involvement of secondary caregivers, instead becoming quasi-parental figures whose daily routines, emotional investments, and future hopes have become inextricably linked to this child. For months, they have provided not merely basic care of feeding, changing, soothing, but have offered love, attention, and the kind of consistent nurturing that shapes a developing infant's sense of security and belonging. The loss that Leo and Javi experience is not comparable to a casual disconnection, but rather resembles a profound separation that strikes at the core of their identities and daily existence. The rooms they have prepared, the routines they have established, the midnight feedings they have endured together, and the quiet moments of connection they have shared with the baby, all of these will soon become memories rather than current reality. The writers have deliberately constructed this scenario to emphasize the genuine sacrifice and emotional labor that caretakers invest in children, even when those caretakers understand intellectually that the arrangement is temporary and ultimately for the child's greater good. The narrative suggests that Leo and Javi will necessarily rely upon one another to navigate this painful transition, leaning on their existing relationship and shared experience to process their grief. Their mutual dependence during this difficult period may actually serve to deepen their connection to one another as they become partners in loss and witnesses to each other's pain. The support they offer each other, whether through conversation, shared tears, or simply remaining present during moments of overwhelming sadness, becomes a counterbalance to the void created by the baby's departure. This dynamic underscores a fundamental human truth that while we cannot always control circumstances that cause us pain, we can choose to stand beside others who are experiencing similar challenges and, through that solidarity, find meaning and consolation. Gabi's lightning touch and Ari's emotional navigation. While Leo and Javi shoulder the heaviest emotional burden associated with this transition, Gabi Hernandez, a character renowned for her fierce protective instincts and her ability to balance seriousness with levity, repeatedly employs humor and gentle teasing as a mechanism for processing the complicated emotions surrounding the baby's departure. Her playful interactions with young Ariana represent more than mere distraction. They constitute a deliberate parenting technique designed to help her young daughter navigate the confusing and potentially destabilizing experience of watching a beloved child leave the household. Gabi's approach reflects a sophisticated understanding of child psychology and emotional development. By introducing moments of lightness and playful interaction, she creates opportunities for Ari to express her feelings in an age-appropriate manner while simultaneously modeling the capacity to experience sadness without being overwhelmed by it. Whether her teasing serves as a gentle love test assessing Ari's emotional resilience and her capacity to find joy even amid loss, or functions primarily as a method to redirect the child's attention away from sadness, Gabi's interventions demonstrate a mother's deep commitment to her child's emotional well-being and psychological health. For young Ariana herself, witnessing the departure of a child she has become accustomed to represents an early lesson in the impermanence of relationships and the bittersweet nature of loving others. Even at her young age, Ari is beginning to understand that sometimes people we care for must move on to new circumstances, and that the ending of one chapter does not negate the significance of the memories created during that chapter. Through her mother's guidance and modeling, Ari is learning invaluable lessons about resilience, adaptability, and the capacity to maintain love even when physical proximity is no longer possible. Rafe's silent support and the broader family network. Though less prominently featured in the specific narrative details, Rafa Hernandez, the patriarch of the Hernandez family, presumably provides the stable, grounded presence that his family requires during this emotionally turbulent period. Rafe's character has historically embodied qualities of steadiness, pragmatic wisdom, and unwavering commitment to family members, even when circumstances prove challenging or emotionally draining. During the transition period surrounding Trey's departure, Rafe's role likely involves providing emotional support to Leo, offering guidance to Gabi regarding Ari's emotional processing, and maintaining the overall equilibrium of the Hernandez household during a time of significant upheaval. The broader family network recognizes that while the immediate loss falls most heavily upon those who provided daily care, the ripple effects of this change extend throughout the entire family constellation. Rafe's ability to validate everyone's feelings while simultaneously affirming that this outcome serves the baby's best interests becomes essential in helping the family navigate what might otherwise become a source of ongoing regret or resentment. His presence and support create space for all family members to express their complicated emotions without judgment, facilitating a collective processing of loss that ultimately strengthens rather than fractures family bonds. Looking forward, the continuing saga of the Hernandez family. As this emotionally intense episode concludes with the bittersweet farewell to the baby they have nurtured, the narrative simultaneously hints at future developments that will continue to engage the Hernandez family in significant plot developments. The conclusion of this particular storyline does not signal the diminishment of the Hernandez family's role within the broader Days of Our Lives narrative. Rather, it marks a transition point from which new stories, conflicts, and character developments will inevitably emerge. Salem's writers have historically demonstrated a tendency to weave multiple storylines together, creating a rich tapestry where the resolution of one plot element serves as the catalyst for the commencement of others. The promise that additional drama involving the Hernandez family is forthcoming creates a sense of anticipation and engagement for devoted viewers who have invested considerable emotional energy in these characters' journeys. Whether the upcoming developments involve romantic entanglements, career challenges, family conflicts, or entirely unexpected plot twists, audiences can reasonably anticipate that the Hernandez family will remain central to Salem's emotional landscape and continue to grapple with the kinds of authentic human experiences that have made Days of Our Lives an enduring cultural phenomenon across multiple decades. Conclusion. A chapter closes, many others begin. Wednesday, November 5th's episode of Days of Our Lives encapsulates the profound complexity of modern family formation, celebrating the joy of adoption while simultaneously acknowledging the legitimate grief experienced by those who must release their caregiving responsibilities. The naming of Trey represents not merely a procedural formality, but a powerful affirmation of legacy, the importance of honoring family history, and the capacity of love to transcend biological connections. The farewells exchanged by Leo, Javi, Gabi, Ari, and Rafa remind viewers that genuine growth and positive life outcomes often require sacrifice and the acceptance of complicated emotions.